All right, everybody, welcome back to episode 91 of the Facts Over Feelings podcast. 91 episodes, that's crazy to think about.
It is crazy.
I'm with Ryan, I'm with Jack, and today this is going to be a very NFL-centric podcast, and I'm kind of excited for it. It's been 8 months since we've had football, or just about 8 months since we've had football, maybe a little less. I'm not sure how much detail we're going to go into today. I know we're going to go through most of the divisions, if not all of them, give our division winners, maybe give some teams that you like, some teams that you don't like this year, just kind of like a general overview of the NFL season. I'm going to throw it over to Ryan to kick us off. Ryan, take it away.
Trevor, I'm glad you sent it over to me to kick it off because now I can start with the conference that's the better of the two in the NFL, that being the AFC. I think we can all agree here that the AFC is the stronger of the two divisions this year, at least the deeper of the two, conferences this year in the NFL. Let's just kick it off by starting with a pretty bad division in the AFC East. All right, so we have the Buffalo Bills, the Miami Dolphins, revamped, by the way, the New York Jets, and who else? The New England Patriots, if I'm not mistaken. And I guess I'll just kind of get started with what I think on some of these teams, who I think is going to win. I think we all know who's going to win this division. It's going to be the Buffalo Bills, barring a Josh Allen injury. I mean, they're by far and away the most talented. They've got obviously the best quarterback in the division. They've got the best receiver in the division, arguably. I guess Tyreek's up for debate with Stephon Diggs, but I'd say Diggs is probably the more consistent receiver. You have the better just general offense, and you have the much better defense. Patriots have a solid defense, but they lost a couple players. They're getting a little bit old. They're not really adding a ton of talent. The Bills kept their defense and then added Von Miller to in my opinion, too big of a contract. I mean, he's up there in age and he got what did he get? 4 years, I think 80 million, something along those lines. It was maybe more. Yeah.
6 years, 120 million for a 32-year-old pass rusher.
I mean, this reminds me of an MLB contract where they're just paying for this guy's like late 30s. I mean, I think this is an overpay, but it's going to help him these next 2 or 3 years. I think it's going to come back to bite him later, but it'll help him now. They have the best team on both sides of the ball, well-rounded, well-coached. Trevor loves their coach, and Sean McDermott. Trevor, I know you've been a massive fan of him for years. You know, you used to argue that he should have been coach. Well, I just remember we used to have our debates about that year the Browns made the playoffs. You're like, who should win coach of the year, Stefanski or McDermott? You went McDermott. I went Stefanski. I remember that. Both were great coaches then. McDermott's a great coach now still. And I think the Dolphins, are my second favorite team in this division. Trevor's not a fan of Tua. I don't know what Eden thinks about Tua, but I'm cautiously optimistic. The Dolphins to me are the 2020-2019 Cleveland Browns. They have talent everywhere, but the quarterback's a question mark, right? Can Tua step up? They have the receivers. They have a tight end. They have some running backs. They have a really good defense, particularly the secondary, very, very strong. If Tua can step up, they could definitely make a wild card spot. I like them. I think that they're going to win some games this year, surprise some people. But, I don't know what you guys think. But, Trevor, do you want to kind of take it away? Tell me what you think of these teams here.
Sure, I'll take it away. I'll be brief. I think this division's pretty straightforward. Shout out Zach Himson. I hope he gets better soon with that knee injury. Eden and I's new favorite player in the NFL for sure. Anyways, on a more serious note, Ryan covered this division well. Buffalo's going to win the division. They also will have the future MVP of the league this year in Josh Allen. He will win MVP. I'm going to say that right now on this podcast.
Bold.
The Bills will also be the number 1 seed. And that's about it. I'm not high on Miami. I'm not high on Tua. And to me, I think that's all you need to say, right? Like I was thinking about it in my head. I was like, what else do I not like about Miami? Maybe their kicker, but I like everything else about Miami. They have good depth at running back. They have some really nice receivers. Their offensive line is a little bit suspect, but for me, Tua is certainly the weakness of this team. I don't believe in him. He's undersized. He's injury prone. And I haven't seen any reason to believe this guy can carry this team to the playoffs. I do think they have a very good defense. And I think they're going to be in a lot of games this year. I think they're going to be right around 500. I think they're going to be 9-8, 8-9. And in the stacked AFC, that's not going to be good enough. So for me, this is going to be a one playoff team division. No one's talked about New England, so I'll touch on them briefly. I think New England is going to be poor. Never really liked Mac Jones. Still don't like Mac Jones all that much. I hate their receivers. They have a nice running back in Damian Harris. They're well coached, obviously. They'll have a solid defense, but it's just a it's like Miami, New England are the opposite in terms of talent. Like New England has talent nowhere. Miami has talent everywhere. Neither of them have really a very good quarterback. So I'm going to go, if I had to guess right now, I think Miami's going to be a 9-win team. I think New England's going to be a 6-win team, maybe 7-win team. But certainly this is Buffalo's division. And like I said, not a believer in the Dolphins. I don't think they make the playoffs this year.
Fair. Eden, what do you think? I'm curious.
I think you two summed up the Bills' point very well. I think they are probably going to be the best team in the NFL over the course of the regular season. They're just fun to watch with Josh Allen and that high potent passing offense. So enough said there. Also, to get back to Von Miller, only the first 3 years of that contract are guaranteed. So sounds like a lot of money, but I mean, up to 35, 36 is guaranteed. So that's interesting. But I don't know. I agree with Trevor's point on I'm not high on New England. I see them being about a 7-win team this year, maybe 8 and 9. With their coaching, but you lose Josh McDaniels on the offensive side of the ball. You have Mac Jones and a bunch of, it seems like, overpaid weapons and Hunter Henry, Kendrick Bourne. They picked up Devontae Parker, kind of guys that have been have-beens or are overpaid. So I'm not very high on them, and I'm kind of walking the line here on the Miami Dolphins. I think once we go through the rest of the AFC teams, it'll be interesting to see kind of where I stack them up, because I think that they are pretty much a 7-8 team in the AFC this year. And we all know the top 7 teams as of about 2 years ago get into the playoffs in the NFL. So I think they're a team that is going to be in it right to the very end. I think now it's now Tua's time. Like, this is his chance to show the organization that he can be the quarterback going forward and get that second contract with all the weapons you have around him in Waddle, in Gesicki, in Tyreek Hill. And then you have the backs. You have Raheem Mostert, Chase Edmonds, and as well as the guys that they had last year as well. So I think it's really put up or shut up time for Tua. And I know he's got 2 years left on his deal, but I think these next 2 years are going to really show whether or not he can go forward and continue as Miami's quarterback. As far as where I see them, they have the potential to get to 10 wins. What they have is a young new coach. I forget his name, but he came from San Francisco and has worked under Kyle Shanahan, who has obviously been a successful coach in the NFL. So he's very young. He's very inexperienced, in my opinion. But does he have the capability to push that offense to take it over the top? And I think with his hire and with the whole Brian Flores situation, it's really, they could flourish or they could flop this season. So I'm very curious to see how that goes. As far as will they get into the playoffs, I'm going to wait until we go through the rest of the AFC. And then as far as the Jets go, I like the pieces that they have going forward on the offensive side of the ball. They're clearly still, I would say, at least 2 years away from being a wild card with Buffalo in this division, but they'll be towards the bottom of the league. But I would like to see some improvements in year 2 under Saleh, and I see them being about a 5 or 6 win team if Zach Wilson can stay healthy. I'm a little more on the optimistic side, but not that they'll be any serious threat.
Yeah, I like the points you guys made. I just want to, before I move on, just say, I think Trevor had a great point on like how Miami and New England are completely opposite. And where they're opposite is the athleticism, right? Like Trevor and I have, pointed out specifically maybe to each other more so than on the pod, like New England's athleticism at receiver is actually non-existent, right? You have Devontae Parker, who has no separation ability. Jacoby Myers, who, come on, like he's a punt returner more than he is a receiver. And you have Aguilar and Kendrick Bourne, who like you overpaid. You're paying them 8 and 12 million a year, right? I mean, that's way too much money for those kind of players. And then you have Miami, who has Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill along with Mike Gesicki, and that alone is just blows that New England receiving core out of the water in terms of athletic ability. So yeah, I like that point that they're super opposite. I don't know. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. Actually, I lied. It's not really going to be an interesting division. I'm interested to see where Miami goes, though. It's going to be a weird season. I think they're like the 2019 Browns, and we'll see. They could go either way. But yeah, I think this is a pretty easy division. We can kind of move on from this, go on to another division if that's okay with you guys. I want to save the best for last. So we're going to move over to the AFC South here. We're going to go to the Titans. Yeah, get this out of the way. The Tennessee Titans, the Indianapolis Colts, along with the Houston Texans and the Jacksonville Jaguars. Let me toss this over to Trevor actually to start for this one because I started for the last one here. Honestly, who do you see winning the division? Is it the Colts or is it the Titans, Trevor?
Good question. I didn't do much research on the AFC South before this podcast. I'm not going to lie. So for me, I'm just going to base this off of coach and quarterback and who I like the best. Do I like Vrabel and Ryan Tannehill, or do I like Matt Ryan and Frank Reich? I'm going to go with Matt Ryan and Frank Reich. I'm going to pick the Indianapolis Colts. I'm not high on either team. Tennessee, outside of Derrick Henry, has nothing on offense. They have no receivers, and I'm not counting Robert Woods, but he's technically there. Treylon Burks is a rookie, so we'll see how that turns out. And I don't remember either defense being really good or really bad. I remember both defenses being, I would say, mid. I like Frank Reich more as a coach than Mike Vrabel slightly. And I think Matt Ryan, I don't know about that actually. I do like Matt Ryan more than Ryan Tannehill, but I think Frank Reich and Mike Vrabel are very even head coaches in my opinion. So I'm going to go with the Indianapolis Colts. Tennessee's kind of had this division on gridlock for a couple of years, and I think they're due for a bad year. And I'm going to go with the Colts. I don't really have a very good reason why. It's just going to be who's a little bit more above average than the next guy. That's pretty much it.
Jack, what do you think?
I agree with Trevor, but I'm a little higher on Indy than he is, I think.
Wow.
I really love what they've done this offseason, replacing Carson Wentz with Matt Ryan, who I believe if he throws for nearly 5,000 yards, sub 5,000 yards, he will be a top 6 passing yards quarterback in NFL history. So I think, he's getting up there in age, but he has the capability to do it. And I think that they have all the pieces around him that they just need solid and steady quarterback play and nothing special. They have, a great young back in Jonathan Taylor, as well as Nyheim Hines is a great compliment. They have young emerging wide receivers and weapons on the outside. One guy that I really like, Michael Pittman, who my boy Keaton Slovis threw to at USC. Just a big, tall receiver who is a great deep threat, but also just a great route runner that he doesn't really get a ton of credit for. And, of course, they have one of the best offensive lines in the NFL that's going to keep Matt Ryan upright. So as far as that, I love that. Their defense it's not up there in the top of the NFL, but I think it's serviceable. You have guys like Leonard and some other pass rushers over there. So I think, honestly, I think they run away with this division, and I could really see the Colts being, an 11-12 win team this season, if I'm being completely honest.
Wow, so they could be like the 2 seed in your opinion, almost like.
Yes, I think a 2-3 range is where I see this team finishing. The Titans, again, kind of in the same boat as the Miami Dolphins, are in that wild card range, and I think a lot of that relies on Derrick Henry, like Trevor said. He played the first, 8 games of the season last year and had an astronomical amount of touches before he got hurt. And they were very successful with him there.
Too many.
They really weren't much without him. I don't believe in this defense at all. And I think ultimately what it's going to come down to is, you look at a team like the Miami Dolphins and compare them to the Tennessee Titans. And I just think I give the Dolphins the slight edge there because they seem to be a team that's trending up versus Tennessee being a team that is trending down, in my opinion. So as far as that, I think Tennessee's another borderline wild card team, but they do have, the fact that they're playing in not a great division as well on their side. And then the Jaguars and the Texans, I'm excited to see what the Jaguars do a little bit. I don't think they'll do much, but hopefully Trevor Lawrence can have a better year, and then the Texans are just in trouble. So,
yeah,
I like the Colts.
Yeah, you guys were talking, and in reality, this is the Colts division, and I don't even like the Colts. Like, look, They're a unique team because they keep getting these older journeyman almost type quarterbacks, because they have the structure. They just don't have the quarterback, right? They have, the bones of a team. They just don't have that, that quarterback to fulfill it, right? So ever since Luck retired, they've been getting, right? They got Phillip Rivers, they have Carson Wentz now, and now they have Matt Ryan, right? They've had all these older or just kind of like, second chance journeyman type quarterbacks. And it's kind of worked so far. I mean, like kind of like they've treaded water a little bit. They've been good, but like they haven't been like that good, right? The Titans have still continued to win the division. But I do agree. I think that changes this year, if only because the Titans, I think, got worse. I mean, look, when you lose A.J. Brown because you won't extend him, and that's perfectly fine if you won't extend him. But like now your team's worse this year. Like it's just not going to help things. Your line's not great. You don't really have like a ton of weapons for Ryan Tannehill outside of handing the ball off to Derrick Henry. And the defense hasn't really gotten any major upgrades in my eyes. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm missing something here, but I don't recall them getting any major upgrade this offseason. So I just don't see where they got better. I think they got worse. And the Colts, I don't think they got better either. I don't think Matt Ryan is all that good anymore. I don't think they have any receivers really to help him out with as well. I know Pittman's there, but what do you have outside of Michael Pittman? You have literally nothing. I mean, you have Mo Alley Cox at tight end. Like that's like you have Zach Pascal. Like you have nothing. So I don't like their skill positions on offense outside of Jonathan Taylor. But they have a good O-line. They have a solid top 10 defense, back end of the top 10, in my opinion, and they're well coached. So they're, not going to take a step back like the Titans will. And I think that's why they win the division. But I think the Jaguars have some room to surprise people. And it's the Jags. They're terrible, right? We know this. They've always been bad, except for that 1 year where their defense was lights out. But they have a new coach, Doug Peterson, right? Who I think is a much better head coach than any of the coaches they've had in the last, at least recent 4 or 5 years. Yeah. And then
Absolutely.
who do they have? What was his name? Was it like something Marone? Doug Marone, maybe, I think was his name. I mean, they just haven't had good coaches in the recent years. And that's a problem for bad organizations. They make bad coaching hires, right? I think they finally got it at least half right. Like Peterson's going to be at least semi-competent. He's been around the block a time or two. He coached a Super Bowl team, right? Like he knows what he's doing. This is Lawrence's chance, right? You overpay for Christian Kirk because you have to if you're Jacksonville to get guys. You overpay for Christian Kirk. You have Marvin Jones. You have Laviska Shenault. You have James Robinson with Travis Etienne coming back, who, by the way, I think is going to have a great year. You have talent on the offensive end. They could win more games than people would expect. They could surprise the Titans a little bit. They'll beat the Texans. Who knows? Maybe they hover somewhere around that 6 to 8 win. I mean, they definitely won't make the playoffs, but I think they have room to surprise people. And I think that in the coming years, who knows? Maybe they can rival for that second spot. But I kind of like what Jacksonville's building, at least on offense and in the coaching room. So that's just something to kind of keep an eye on a little bit.
Don't hate on my boy Zach Pascal, okay? He can be a solid piece. I really see him being like a Russell Gage for that team. And Russell Gage
is fine.
Russell Gage with Matt Ryan was great. I think, he's not the guy you're going to be scared of, but he's a guy who's going to play in the middle of the field, get some receptions, and he's going to be a factor for that team. So just calm down on the Zach Pascal slander.
I mean, sure, come on, Trevor. Slander with me. Come on.
To switch the point, that's not my point. I wanted to interrupt here because I have a prop bet for you guys that just popped into my head regarding the Tennessee Titans.
All right.
Including injuries, including record, everything. Malik Willis, will he start over or under 1.5 games for the Tennessee Titans this season?
Barring injury, under.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You have to include.
He's not even the backup, is he? Or is he?
Yes, he is. Yes, he is.
He's already the backup. Okay, well,
I mean, who else? Yeah, I mean, they had no one. So yeah.
If it's only 1.5, I would be tempted. I would say, if they don't get off to a great start, I wouldn't be surprised. And if Tannehill gets hurt, I don't think that's a terrible bet to go.
They're not going to bench Tannehill.
They're in a weak division. They're going to be in the division the entire year. Malik Willis is clearly not ready to start an NFL game. He did look good, though, I will admit. He's also the third stringer on the depth chart, by the way.
Who's ahead of him?
Logan Woodside. I don't know who that is.
I mean,
but that's according to the depth chart.
He's
So,
second. I mean, like for all intents and purposes, I mean, come on. They're not going to start Logan Woodside over Malik Willis if it comes down to it.
we don't know that. So I would absolutely take the under on that. I don't think Malik Willis will see the field except for maybe a wildcat situation here and there.
Like Trey Lance last year.
What?
Like Trey Lance last year.
Right, exactly.
Trey Lance
exactly.
started 2 games last year.
Wasn't that because of injury?
Injury is part of the conversation. I
Injury's
was
part
just
of the
asking you a question.
conversation.
I just
It's
wanted to see
under.
what you said.
It's under. Tennessee's going to hand the ball off 40 times a game. Ryan Tannehill's not going to take a lot of hits. The offensive line is good. Tennessee's, it's not bad, but it's not great. What?
I think it's pretty bad. I mean, Tannehill got destroyed last year. I
don't remember him getting destroyed, but sure.
All right.
I mean, can you jog my memory?
Basically, that doesn't make you think at all. 1.5 doesn't make you think at all. Okay.
I mean, if I'm factoring in injury, then it makes me think, but I don't like to factor in injury to making a bet like that. So not really.
Yeah.
Like, do I think Tannehill might miss a couple of games? Yeah, I do. I think he's going to get I think he's going to get whacked around a little bit. I mean, he has no one to throw to. He's going to have to these guys aren't going to get a ton of separation unless we have like a big breakout year from one of his receivers. That also factors into it, right? Like, is he going to have someone to throw to consistently? I don't think so. They don't have talent at receiver. Like the line's average at best, and he has no one to throw to. I think that's going to hurt him. I think he's going to have a tough time. I just think he's going to struggle a little bit, and it's not even really his fault in my opinion. But I think that
it might be a better play to bring in a mobile QB. But anyways,
yeah,
I just wanted to ask that question.
He's just not ready, man. Like it's like Trey Lance. Like barring injury, Malik Willis will not see the field this season. And yeah, Tennessee was a middle of the road offensive line. I don't know what Ryan was laughing at. They were literally 16th.
Dude, Ryan Tannehill got sacked the most out of any player in the NFL last year.
Is that really true?
I mean, unless these numbers on StatMuse are wrong, he got sacked 47 times, which is 7 more than the second
Joe Burrow.
Joe Burrow got sacked. I mean, I don't even know where he is here, to be honest with you.
Interesting.
This could be wrong, but I don't know why it would just be wrong.
I'm looking at, with a grain of salt PFF, right? Like they're not great, but Tennessee was 16th. So I assume that meant they were an average offensive line with a couple of good tackles and Taylor Lewan and David Quessenberry. So, but maybe I didn't know Tannehill was the most sacked player in the NFL last season. So maybe there is cause for concern there. I'm not going to lie, but again, it's going to be Derrick Henry getting the ball left and right, per usual with that offense. So, again, to answer Jack's bet for the 5th time, no, Malik Willis will not see the field this season. So I think with that, enough of that division. I can't stand talking about those teams.
Hold on. I just want to say Eden was right. I'm sorry. Burrow got sacked. So Burrow was the most at 51. Tannehill was second at 47. So Tannehill had the second most sacks. Yeah. But so yeah, that makes sense. Anyway, yeah, Trevor, let's move on. What division you want to go to next in the AFC? It's your call.
We'll go to the AFC North.
The
North.
North.
Talk about the West last.
All right. Yeah, we'll save the best for last year, right? AFC North. Who wants to start?
I want to start.
Go ahead. You can take it away.
So I think, I don't know. I kind of go back and forth. I think there's 2 clear teams that are favorites and 2 other teams that could, with a good year, be a wild card team. Legitimately.
Yeah.
Not that I expect it from the Browns or from the Pittsburgh Steelers, but I think to me, and this might cause a little controversy, I think this division doesn't make me think at all. I think it's obvious that the Cincinnati Bengals will repeat as division champions and the Baltimore Ravens will be the wild card team that comes from this division. And then you have, the Browns who upping Watson's suspension from 6 to 11. I didn't think they were a playoff team with Watson missing 6 games.
Really?
I definitely don't think that they're a playoff team with Watson missing 11 games this season. And then, you have the Pittsburgh Steelers who I'm not sold on Mitch right now. I think he could be, an average starting quarterback that gets your team to the playoffs and maybe wins you a playoff game if he plays well. But I just don't think it's tough for me to bet against Mike Tomlin, who hasn't had a losing season since he's been a head coach in the NFL. but I just don't see them being much better than a 9-8 team this year. And like Trevor said earlier, I don't think that's enough to get it done. But it's going to cause some controversy, but I think it's a no-brainer. Cincinnati, they got better this offseason. They added an offensive line to help Joe Burrow. They have great weapons at wide receiver. They have a great running back. And I think, this defense is a year older and going to play a little bit better. And they got playmakers on all sides of the ball. So I just think, to me, yes, Baltimore is a little healthy, but they lost Marquise Brown, a big weapon on the offensive end. I just think, I see the Bengals winning 11 or 12 games and winning this division without much thought.
Trevor?
I agree with a lot of what he said. I'm not going to lie. The more I think about Cincinnati, the more I like them to win this division. Baltimore, to me, is not as good as past Baltimore teams. Losing those receivers in Marquise Brown, I guess only really in Marquise Brown. You still have Mark Andrews, but outside of Mark Andrews, there's not a good aerial threat there. J.K. Dobbins will be nice for them. I think J.K. Dobbins will open up some things. I think it'll give them a lot more balance, and I don't think they'll be as reliant on as much on Lamar's legs as they have been in the past, which is always a weapon. And look, this defense is really good. That secondary in Baltimore is really, really good when healthy, of course. Peters, Humphrey, Kyle Fuller, that is a very formidable secondary. So for me, it's tough to count Baltimore out. And here's the other thing that confuses me about Baltimore, but it's just a fact. Lamar Jackson just wins a lot of football games. I mean, whether you like him as a passer or not, the guy wins in the NFL. He was a winner his rookie year when he helped them make the playoffs. He was a winner the year after that when they ended up, I think, going 12-4 and having the best record in the AFC before they lost in the playoffs. I believe the year after that, he won a playoff game before losing at Buffalo. And then last season, there was just so many injuries. He started getting hurt that I think it was the first time in his career that he didn't make the playoffs. So here's what I'm going to say. I'm going to go Cincinnati wins the division. They have the best quarterback in the division. I shouldn't say that. They will have the best quarterback in the division for at least the first 11 games this season in Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow, Deshaun Watson, that's up for debate. That's a tough one. But Joe Burrow for the first 11 games is the best quarterback in the division. They have the best skill position room in the division. They have a much improved offensive line. They've brought in, I think, 3 people on the offensive line: Lyle Collins, Alex Kappa, and I believe the center from Kansas City, Tyler Karras, something like that. Mm-hmm. And their defense, I think we saw their defense was better than people expected. And I think it might not be the best and most complete defense, but they have playmakers. I think Jesse Bates is a very strong safety. He's a playmaker. Hendrickson, the pass rusher, he's a playmaker. He's a guy that can disrupt things up front. And Cincinnati just has a lot of mojo. I just think Joe Burrow has completely turned this franchise around. He's given this franchise a new level of swag, a new level of confidence, and he's just great. I mean, I wasn't even high on Joe Burrow coming out of the draft. I thought it was more just when you're throwing to Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase in college, you're going to look good. But, well, he has Jamar Chase now in the NFL,
That's a lot
right?
of it, yes. That's a lot of it.
But it's Joe Burrow. It's Joe Shiesty. It's Joey Missiles. Like, come on.
Joey Missiles.
He makes a okay. I'll get into it.
Hold on, Ryan. Hold on. I haven't finished.
Yeah.
So my thing is Cincinnati just feels like they just have that Joe Montana feel. Joe Burrow's just giving them that Joe Montana level of confidence.
Oh my Lord.
And Cleveland, they might have been a playoff team with Watson being out six games. They probably would have been. There's still a question mark of, look, the guy hasn't played in 2 years. He might not be 100% what he was in Houston. I think he'll be close to what he was, if not just as good in Houston. But Watson being out 11 games really hurts the Browns. They're going to finish third in this division. I think they'll be an 8-win team this year. And then the Pittsburgh Steelers, look, the Steelers have a very, very good defense, a very, very good front seven. TJ Watt, Tremaine Edmonds, Devin Bush, Hayward in the middle. They have Minkah Fitzpatrick in the back end. So that's a very formidable defense. And at the end of the day, we can hate on Mitch Trubisky, and it's fair. He's not an excellent quarterback. The guy's been to the playoffs twice. Outside of a double doink, the guy would have won a playoff game. he won 12 games with the Chicago Bears, right? Like the Chicago Bears are as dysfunctional a franchise as there is, and Mitch Trubisky, was the quarterback of the last 2 times they've made the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Pittsburgh is certainly relevant, and Mike Tomlin is, arguably one of the best coaches of all time. I actually don't think I think it's pretty obvious he is one of the best coaches of all time.
Hall of Famer.
And he's going to have his players ready. And I think I've heard people say this before. Mike Tomlin does a great job. He does a great job, like, finding ways to motivate his team. I just think he does a very good job. I think he's just a great player motivator coach. And I think he's a very good leader. And I think players play hard for him, whether he's the best X and O guy ever, that's up for debate. But when you can get a team to believe in you and buy into what you're saying, I think you're hard to beat. And they have players, and they have good skill position players, weak offensive line. But this Pittsburgh team isn't bad. This is going to be it's going to be like last year. This is going to be a very tight division. But the more I think about Cincinnati, the more I'm just falling in love with Joe Burrow, and I'm going to pick the Bengals.
Oh,
I will say Ravens will make the wild card. The Ravens will make the playoffs this year.
Man, here I sit, and I never thought I'd be a Baltimore Ravens defender, but like here I am, like somehow having to like remind everybody that the Baltimore Ravens were a really good team, and they were the best team in the AFC North, for at least a handful of years prior to having an NFL record like 40-odd players on the IR last year. I mean, they had an ungodly amount of injuries last year that derailed their season.
Best team in the AFC.
They were good. In the AFC North. In the AFC North.
Oh.
Yeah, not the AFC. But like Lamar Jackson missed the last one, was it 4 or 5 games? I mean, that's like a massive, like we just like forget about that. Like he was out for a good chunk of the season that derailed their season. They were actually, having a pretty solid year before he got hurt, right? They were on track to do more of the same old. Cincinnati, was there. They were having a good year, but they started sliding a little bit in the middle to back part of that season for a little bit. And then the Ravens lost Lamar, and it was just done. That was all she wrote. My point is, I think the Ravens are the best team in this division. I think since he actually takes a step back, I think that they have a sophomore slump, so to speak. I think that it's going to be hard to replicate a little bit of that magic they had. They had a really hot playoff run. I think that, I don't think that they were better than a lot of the teams that were also in the playoffs. I think they just outplayed them in that specific game. I think we talked about this before. Not the best team, the most talented team doesn't always win, especially in the playoffs in a one-off game in the NFL. I think that's what happened in some of those Cincinnati games. Yeah, I think they're good, but I think Jamar Chase is the reason they were so good. We talk about Joe Burrow being good, and he's really good, but Jamar Chase is special. And I think that, I actually, in my opinion, I put more of the reason for their offensive success on him than Joe Burrow. But like, maybe I'm disrespecting Burrow too much, but I think Chase is just that special. I think Chase could be like the best receiver in football, when like Adams falls off and like, a couple other of the top players fall. I think he could easily be the top receiver in the NFL, right? He could already be he's already in the top 5, right? And he's only been here for a season, right? I mean, it's unbelievable. So the guy's just special. I think he's a lot of the reason for their success. And I think that they take a little bit of a step back. I think they find it a little more difficult to just string together wins. It's just hard in the NFL. And the Ravens have an elite coach in Harbaugh. They have a team that's won before, and they're great on both sides of the ball. I think that losing Marquise Brown isn't a big deal. He drops a lot of passes. It's been a big problem. I get Cardinals fans might like him. Maybe he'll be he's a fast guy. He'll burn a couple safeties and corners on deep routes. But can he catch the touchdown pass? Lamar would tell you, not always, So, I think that that's not that big of a loss. They've never been a stronger receiver. That's not going to change. I think they win the division. The Browns, I agree, they won't make the playoffs. But if they go, there's a chance. They could sneak into the wild card if Watson comes back against the Texans, which is an easy win, shakes off the rust in that game, and then goes 4-2 or 5-1 to end the year. Who knows? But I'd bet against it. The Steelers, Trevor's right. Trubisky's not as bad as people think. Trubisky's actually going to probably be more of like a Jimmy G guy. If the rest of the team can play well, he will be good enough to make the playoffs. I truly think that. This division's going to be really tight. Trevor's right. Trubisky's going to be better than people say. They have Deontay and Claypool and Pickens, 3 good receivers, all homegrown talent. The Steelers might be the best team in football at drafting receivers. It's unbelievable how they just turn out talent every single year, right? I mean, we could go on and on with the players they've had over the years. Freiermuth's nice. Najee Harris is good. The O-line's not great, but that's about the only weakness they have there. They're a solid team. You know, the more I think about it, this division is going to be really, really tight, especially if the Browns overperform a bit with Brissett. So it'll be fun, but I think the Ravens are 1, the Bengals are 2, and then the Browns and Steelers are down there in that 3rd spot somewhere. But it's going to be tight. It's going to be tight.
I listening to this, you two have changed my mind. Not on who's at the top, but who's at the bottom. And I now think with the suspension, the Cleveland Browns will finish last in the division.
Possible, yeah.
I will say,
But last could be 8 wins. Go ahead.
That's very true.
Ryan makes a very compelling argument for Baltimore. I'm not going to lie, Ryan, that argument resonated with me because he's right. At the end of the day, when has Baltimore in Lamar Jackson's tenure had an elite receiver? Right, they never have. Marquise Brown was probably the best receiver they've had. Now they did trade him away, but right, he's nothing special.
Right.
He drops a lot of passes. He's fast. And they still have Mark Andrews. They're going to get J.K. Dobbins back this season. I don't know how great their offensive line is. I'm not great at evaluating how good an offensive line is. They're doing something right, I'm sure. And John Harbaugh is an elite coach. And I think that, you know, we shouldn't just gloss over that. And also Ryan made a very good point that this Ravens team was, I think, 8-3 or 8-4 through the first 11 or 12 games last year.
8-3.
Before players just started dropping like flies. They were like getting sniped. They were just falling over and getting injured. So at the end of the day, I just think Joe Burrow, man, he's that guy. That's
wow.
I'm not betting it after watching.
But Lamar's an MVP candidate in his best years.
I just think Joe Burrow, and I love his weapons. I just think Cincinnati's better. I think they're a better team.
Coaching?
Than Baltimore. Slightly. It's close.
All right. Does the coaching not make it up for you? Zach Taylor versus John Harbaugh? You know, is that not doing it? I mean, I don't know. I mean, like, it's
I'm
fair
not
if it
that
doesn't.
high. I'm not as high as you are. Harbaugh's a great coach. I'm not as high on Harbaugh as you are.
All right.
But I will say,
I don't know. I just think Joe Burrow is just. I'm falling in love with him.
Trevor. Now that we can actually get your last point, Eden, then I want to ask Trevor a question.
In games last season that Lamar started, in 1-score games, the Baltimore Ravens, I believe, I may have done the math wrong. I believe they were 5-2 in 1-score games that Lamar started and played the whole game last year.
Sure.
So I remember us having this conversation on the pod was, you know, they win a lot of close games. And I think it's funny because I think we've kind of flipped now. I think you two were saying, you know, you can't trust them because they're in a lot of close games. And I was saying, you know, you need to win close games. You need to know how to win close games in order to be successful in the NFL. I think it's just funny how at least Ryan seems very high on them, and I still like them, but I'm not as high on them.
I think the reason I am is because I just thought the Bengals just got hot. Like I need to see it over. I just need to see it over a full season, and I just trust the Ravens. I just trust the Ravens more. Better coach, a more experienced quarterback who has a very unique skill set, and I just think that. I don't want to bet against a team that's always been great when healthy. They're always good. The Ravens are always good.
Here's what I will say is I think they have the experience. They've been there before. And what I will say is why I like the Bengals more is because they have more talent.
Fair. I mean, it's a fair argument, yeah. I mean, I can't
And
disagree.
they have Joe Burrow. At the end of the day, Joe Burrow.
Trevor, Lamar Jackson is great.
Joe Burrow just gives that aura of like, we're going to win no matter what. Like if I'm playing for Joe Burrow, like I just believe in him. I believe in like, I just believe in him. I don't know how to explain it.
Ladies and gentlemen, he's falling in love right before our eyes.
Look, it's not easy to go to the Super Bowl in your second year starting as quarterback, and you go to Tennessee, the number 1 seed last year, who, you know, they weren't great, but they were the number 1 seed. And then you go to Kansas City and you beat Patrick Mahomes. That says a lot. And barring maybe the worst offensive line of all time, they probably would have beaten the Rams in the Super Bowl. They were winning that game in the third quarter, I believe by 10 points. And then Aaron Donald took over and started sacking him every play. But it's just hard to bet against a guy like that.
Can I just say, this might be the only – I think there's only 2 divisions in football where this is the case. I think all 4 teams – you can make a legit case that they'll make the playoffs. I think all 4 teams have a legitimate case. And I think there's only one other division that can say that. And that's
Which
the one
we'll
we're going to go to
now.
next, which is the AFC West. And this is where I want to ask Trevor a question. We can kind of cycle in here, and we'll let Trevor go start off with the AFC West, because Trevor also loves Justin Herbert. And the question I was going to ask Trevor is, with your newfound love for Joe Burrow, do you like him more than Justin Herbert? Like, I'm really curious.
If I had to start a
if you had to
franchise,
pick a quarterback, who are you choosing?
if I had to start a franchise right now,
Yes.
and I had to pick Joe Burrow or Justin Herbert,
Yeah.
oh man, I don't know.
And you know, I know my answer, but I want to ask you because I know you're really high on both of these guys. So I want to know. It's hard. It's hard.
Here's what I will say: the Chargers are winning this division this year. I'm going to throw that out there.
Wow, we're all going to disagree here. This is great.
Who would I pick?
Oh, I love it.
Who would I pick between Burrow and Herbert?
This might
I'm going to go with the slightly more talented arm talent in Justin Herbert.
You couldn't go away from Herbert. Okay.
Slightly.
All right.
I just think Herbert is special, and we've seen that in his first 2 years of being a starter in this league. He kind of took the league by storm his rookie year a little bit, and then last year he was unreal. What did he do? 4,500 yards and 40 touchdowns, right? Like, that's pretty unreal statistics. And here's why I like the Los Angeles Chargers to win this division. I'm not sold on Brandon Staley, but I am sold on this roster. This roster doesn't have a weakness. Elite running back, 2 Pro Bowl caliber receivers, Pro Bowl quarterback. You bring in all pro defensive players like Khalil Mack, J.C. Jackson. You already have Derwin James and Joey Bosa, or is it's Joey Bosa, right?
Yes,
Joey Bosa.
Yep.
This team feels like the Manchester City of NFL football. This team is so good at every position. They're stacked, and then they bring in their Erling Haaland. They bring in their Khalil Macks and J.C. Jacksons to help bolster that defensive side of the ball. This Chargers team to me is the most well-rounded, and I think it's the best team in the division. I don't love the head coach, but I love the quarterback. I love the running back. Wow. I love the defense. Chargers, no home field advantage either. They play 8 away games, or they play 8 away games and 8 neutral games every year is what it feels like.
Sure.
So even with that, I'm going Chargers to win this division. I'll give you my order of teams.
I want to hear it.
Chargers 1. Now this is where it gets really hard.
It's a tough division.
This is where it gets hard because
I feel confident in my picks, and I'm still sitting here and I'm like, I don't know.
Same.
I'm gonna go Denver 2, Kansas City 3, Raiders 4.
Wow. He did it. He did it. Wow. All right, Trevor, is there...
And here's why. Here's why I'm not as high on Kansas City.
Go ahead.
You lose Tyreek Hill. I think that's a huge loss. And to me, this Kansas City offense can be a little hot and cold. I think we saw that in the AFC Championship game last year, where they saw a cold patch in the second half. And then you lose a guy like Tyrann Mathieu on the defensive side of the ball. Their defense is not all that great. Their receivers are suspect this year. They still have Kelsey, right? Mm-hmm. And they still have Patrick Mahomes. And here's the thing. They might be third in the division, but all 3 of those teams are making the playoffs. The Chargers, the Broncos, and the Chiefs will all make the playoffs. Vegas, I don't think they make the playoffs, just because I don't think four teams from the same division can make the playoffs. So for me, it's going to be like this. The Chargers, 11 or 12 wins. Broncos, 11 wins. KC, 10 or 11 wins. I mean, they're all going to be within 1 or 2 wins of each other. But give me the Chargers. I think it's the most well-rounded team, and I think Denver's the second best team in this division. I think Denver has an incredibly well-rounded roster, and now you bring in an elite quarterback, right? Like, we talk about teams like the Dolphins and the Colts who have these foundations but don't have the quarterback. That was Denver, and now you're bringing in a Hall of Famer in Russell Wilson, who's made the playoffs every year of his career except last season. Denver is going to be a very, very good team this year, and they got really good skill position players. They got a really good defense. Denver and the Chargers are the most well-rounded teams in this division, and their quarterbacks are comparable to Patrick Mahomes. Slightly worse, but comparable.
Wow.
Vegas, too many holes in the roster.
Ryan to go after
this. Do you mind if I go ahead?
I want to hold mine.
Yeah, because I know what you're going to say. Let's save it for last. Look,
I was going to say Vegas, too many holes on the roster. I don't like Josh McDaniels. Is he the coach there? It is Josh McDaniels, right?
Yep.
Don't like Josh McDaniels as a head coach. They should have kept Bisaccia. Too many holes on that defense. Don't love the second receiver, but That's all I gotta say.
Hunter Renfrow.
Eh,
This guy's
decent.
good, man. He's probably one of the
Wow.
premier slot receivers in football, in my opinion.
Wow.
If I had to choose a slot receiver,
Premier slot receivers, like
Yes.
okay.
I'm not kidding. I swear.
Who else is a premier slot
I
receiver?
can't wait to speak.
There's not a lot of them. Look, there's
I
not a
can't.
lot of them. It's rare. But look, let me say this. I disagree with Trevor. We actually disagree on the Chargers quite a bit. Look, I think they're going to be great. I think the addition of Khalil Mack, J.C. Jackson was fantastic. If Derwin James can stay healthy, all of a sudden that defense is riddled with talent instead of holes. And I think that's really good for their team this year. Where I disagree is I think Brandon Staley is one of the best coaches in the NFL. I think he's one of the best coaches in football.
So you're higher on the Chargers than I am.
I'm just saying we disagree with stuff on the Chargers. Yeah, I'm high on the Chargers, but I don't think they're going to win the division. Brandon Staley is one of the best and one of the most progressive analytical coaches in football, which I think is awesome. Stefanski is super, super forward thinking in terms of analytics, which I love. Staley is even ahead of him. He's even bolder. He's even gutsier. He goes for it down 10 on his own 35 with 4th and 7s. That is gutsy and that is analytically backed, and people might laugh at it and scoff at it, but it's the right play in certain situations. And he doesn't do it based on, what should I do? He looks at the numbers and says, hey, upstairs, tell me what's analytically the best move. And that's what he does. And I have a lot of respect for that. And I think the players respect him as well. And he's a good play caller. I think their offense is really, really fun. It's explosive. As Trevor sees and loves about Herbert, big chunk plays all the time. It reminds me of the Kansas City offense, to be honest with you. A lot of big plays, very explosive. And that leads me to the rest of the teams. The Chiefs are my favorites. Look, I've said it before in different sports. I'll say it again. When you're the best team, I need to see them get beat consistently before I knock them off the top of the mountain. And the Kansas City Chiefs are at the top of the mountain for me. They have the best player in the world in Patrick Mahomes. He's the best quarterback in the league. He's the best player in the league. And I think he makes this team great. They still have Travis Kelce. They still have Andy Reid, the genius behind it all. They signed a couple defensive players, albeit maybe they're not as big of names as Tyrann Mathieu. But they signed some guys to replace him at safety. They got Juju Smith-Schuster, who, the more I think about it, is a perfect long-term Kansas City Chief, to be honest. There's a certain amount of arrogance that the Chiefs and that offense in particular have, in my opinion. Mahomes and Kelce in particular. And Hill, right? This guy waves goodbye to guys and gives the peace sign when he's he just backflips into the end zone. And I think Juju fits really well into that culture. I just do. He has a little bit of an arrogance about him that I think is going to work really well. And I think him and Mahomes are going to match up really well. I think that Mahomes just needs a couple deep threats, and that's what he has in Hardman and Scantling. And Kelsey's his safety blanket. And I think that, look, when I say deep threats, they are deep threats. That's all they are, right? That's all he needs. He just needs someone to go deep and he'll hit him, right? That's Mahomes for you.
I'm not a guy who can't catch a ball and Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Come on.
Hey, Marquise Brown drops it more. Okay, I'll tell you that. But
I don't know.
Is Ryan trying to defend that?
Let me say the most
Valdez
important
Scantling
thing
is good.
Let me say the most important thing, which is the Kansas City Chiefs offensive line is fantastic. Patrick Mahomes was sacked the least amount out of any starting quarterback in football last year. He was sacked, I think, 28 times last year, which is the fewest in the NFL, tied for the fewest with Kirk Cousins. Maybe that's partly Mahomes. It definitely is, because he's great at getting the ball out quick. But that O-line's pretty strong as well, and I think that's great. I just think this team is still really strong. It's going to be a really insane division. I'm not going to go too deep on the other teams. Jack's going to go deep on another one. I will say this. The Broncos will be last in this division.
Oh, my.
I love the Denver Broncos. I love
the team. We are so drastically different.
We are. I love the team they have. Bold prediction, Russell Wilson is the worst quarterback in this division this year. He is the worst quarterback in the AFC West. He's older in age. He took a slight step back to me this past year, and I think a new environment, a new coach is tough on a quarterback of his age. He's been there for a long time. He's not as mobile. He's not as mobile as he used to be. He's going to be very good, but this division's loaded.
A new coach, a new environment for Tom Brady was really tough.
Tom Brady is nowhere near the same type of player as Russell Wilson. He's 45 and still elite. Russell Wilson is 32 and already not quite as good as he was. Look, he's going to be good. Judy's good. Sutton's overrated. They don't have a tight end. Javonte Williams is going to be good. The line's average. The defense is good. I don't know. I think the team around him is pretty solid. I think Wilson's the worst of the 4 quarterbacks. I think they finish last in this division. But the Raiders finish third, the Chargers second, and the Chiefs first. That's my prediction right there. Chiefs, Chargers, Raiders, Broncos. 3 make the playoffs. The Raiders make the playoffs as well. The Broncos just miss out. They all beat each other up. That's the issue. But they're all great teams. That's my prediction. Eden, go say what you have to say. I know who you like. Go ahead and say it. I want to hear your 4 teams as well. Go ahead.
I'm just actually in shock right now that like I did not expect you to say the Broncos would finish last. And the fact that we're all so drastically different. I actually can't believe it.
Sure, but
one thing I would like to say though, as you were so down on the Bengals, but you go, the Chiefs have one of the best offensive lines in the league. The Chiefs lose the Super Bowl to the Buccaneers, right? What do they do in the offseason? They go out and pay 3 offensive linemen. The Bengals lose the Super Bowl this past season. What do? They go and pay offensive linemen to keep Joe Burrow upright.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, that was just a point that I wanted to make going back to that.
That's fair.
But we are so drastically different in this division, and I kind of love it. I'm not going to lie. And I'm in shock at the same time. The best team in this division, in my opinion, is the Las Vegas Raiders. And let me tell you why. Devontae Adams coming in at that offense is going to be huge. He's the best wide receiver in the league. I mean, there are great wide receivers. I think we can all agree him with Aaron Rodgers.
It's got to be
the best wide receiver in the NFL. The fact I didn't hear what you said. the fact that he is going back and teaming up with his college teammate Derek Carr and adding him to an offense that already includes as a slot Hunter Renfrow, who had 100 catches last year.
He's awesome. And
a tight end, Darren Waller, who had 100 catches the year before. In addition to bringing Josh McDaniels in as an offensive-minded head coach. And you're playing with a defense that's led by Max Crosby, who is one of the top pass rushers in the NFL. And Jonathan Abram on the back end, who's an emerging young safety.
Overrated.
His issue has just been trying to stay healthy. But I love this Las Vegas Raiders team. I think they are the surprise team in this division. And last year, they won a lot of close games. And I think this year they're more talented and they're better than they were last year. Now, this is a tough division where everyone's going to beat each other up. But I'm sticking to my guns right here. I've said it all offseason, and I want to say it again. The Oakland Raiders are going to surprise people and win this division.
Eden, I have a question. If you had to rank the full division, what do you go? Tell me right now. So you got the Raiders at 1.
Perfect, Ryan. You're leading me right into where I'm going.
Let's hear it.
Oakland Raiders, top of the division. The number 2 team in the division.
There's no way. There's no way you do this.
The Denver Broncos with Russell Wilson. Unlike Ryan, I love Cortland Sutton. I think Cortland Sutton is the better of the 2 wide receivers between Sutton and Jerry Jeudy. And I've said that. He will have a better year. Didn't he go to SMU?
He did.
Am I crazy?
He did,
okay, there we go. I think they have a great defense. Russell Wilson coming into that team, in addition to their weapons, their running game, and their defense, and you add in a Hall of Fame quarterback, I think they're going to be number 2 in this division, and I think everyone's going to be about within a game or 2.
I agree.
Third, I've had a team in mind, and now I'm kind of in toss-up mode, but I think ultimately I'm going to stick to my guns, and I'm going to put the Kansas City Chiefs at number 3.
Thank you.
And
Trevor's in
the
shock.
Los Angeles Chargers are going to be the worst team in this division this year.
Trevor couldn't disagree more.
I can't believe that.
But here's
Oh.
like, I like Brandon Staley as a coach, but I just don't. It's just this aura of the Chargers, right? Like,
okay,
they lose all these close games. They have
That's
all
fair.
these special teams issues, and like, you know, the NFL is a league that constantly moves forward, and that's not like the best predictor of success in the NFL is not the past, which I think I kind of get into with this team as I look more on the past than the future. I think what they did on the defensive side of the ball was great this offseason, and I think they have the weapons and the quarterback who they ultimately the fact of the matter is any team in this division could win the division. And I ultimately think if you had to tell me a team that will not win the division, I would probably say that the Chiefs would not finish first out of the 4 teams.
But you'd
But
put the
I
Chargers
just-
last.
But I put the Chargers last. That's just my take. I don't know. I
Can-
love how we're all drastically different.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
The Chiefs are third. Do they make the playoffs at third? Or do only
I
two
think
teams make the playoffs
3
here?
teams in this division make the playoffs. So
Okay.
going back to my point with the Dolphins earlier, the Dolphins will not make the playoffs. I have
Okay.
these 3 teams. I have the Ravens and the Bengals, and then I have the other 2 division winners as my 7 from the AFC.
Okay, that's fair. Look,
fairly
Trevor.
similar.
Trevor, do you have anything you want to say? I mean, this is a lot that we said.
I
so I'm
do.
curious.
I just don't understand the Charger slander going on right now on this podcast. And Eden, great pick with the Broncos second, right? Like they're bringing in a Hall
I
of Fame
really like the
quarterback.
Broncos.
But
And
what
they
a
have an
I do.
offensive-minded head coach, Nathaniel Hackett. I'm
Who
not sure
is he?
like how he was the offensive coordinator in Green Bay, I believe, and like
Yes.
he worked with Aaron Rodgers for all those years.
Okay.
For me, Justin Herbert might be a top 5 quarterback in this league already.
Oh, wow.
The guy
I
was
don't
third in
disagree with you.
QBR last year, 5,000 passing yards and 40 touchdowns in his second season. Second season. I
don't
want
disagree.
you to let that sink in for a second. His rookie year, 4,400 yards, 31 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions. That's the one weakness with Herbert. He throws a lot of picks,
Burrow
but
throws
he's
more.
a gunslinger. It happens. And look, statistically, as you get older in the NFL, you throw less interceptions. Peyton Manning's rookie year threw 23 interceptions,
Yep.
21 interceptions. Justin Herbert's getting older. He's not Benjamin Button. He's not getting younger. He's getting older. He's getting wiser. He's
Oh,
going to
boy.
learn that, sometimes take the check down. Don't risk an interception. He's young. He's still got a big arm. He wants to show it off every once in a while. But let's not get it twisted here. This guy's elite. This guy is special. And if I had to start a franchise between him or Patrick Mahomes, I'm taking Patrick Mahomes, but it's very, very close.
I was like, what?
I was like, wow.
I was like, oh my God.
Look,
But if it's fantasy
Here-
quarterbacks, if it's dynasty fantasy quarterbacks, Mahomes and Herbert have a very good argument to be 1-2. Allen would also be in there. I think it'd be those 3 and everybody else for, dynasty fantasy quarterbacks, however you want to word it. So I just think Justin Herbert's that good. And this Chargers team is so well-rounded. I think they have a little bit of a weakness on the interior of their defense, particularly the interior of that defensive line. Run defense was really, really bad last year.
bad. It was awful.
That is a fair criticism. The run defense was horrible last year for the Chargers. Great pass rushers, great secondary. I think they'll be able to kind of mask that a little bit more this year. But
Trevor, you were talking about the additions they made offseason, and I don't think you even mentioned the biggest one, the Chargers.
who did I miss?
Khalil Mack.
Oh, I mentioned him.
Did you? Okay.
I did. I threw him in there.
Okay.
Khalil
Okay.
The
Mack's
thing
not
is,
I
they're
bad.
so
wasn't
good.
sure, but-
They're so good. You throw in a guy like Khalil
Oh,
Mack like it's nothing.
Oh boy. Okay.
But
Listen to this guy. Look,
Anyways, what you were saying, I 100% agree with what you said on Herbert. I think he is a top 5 quarterback right now. But I think
wow.
What is Ryan
There-
not seeing? I don't get it.
No, he's great.
I
There's just a
think-
lot of great quarterbacks. I mean, like, go ahead.
I don't get it.
I ultimately think if you look at all the weapons in this division, I like the Chargers second and I like the Raiders first. And I think Derek Carr is going to turn some heads this season with the best receiving core he's ever had. And I think that's all a guy like him needs to ultimately, if they get hot at the right time, make a run of the Super Bowl. I'm not saying that they will. I just think
Wow.
if they get hot at the right time, you saw what Cincinnati did last year. I think with Cincinnati, they have 3 top weapons. With Las Vegas, you have 3 top weapons. And I think, they have the star power to get there.
Yeah, it's crazy that I'm putting the Broncos 4th because prior to Wilson going to Denver, I had said for years, and Trevor will remember on past podcasts and past years, all the Broncos need is a quarterback.
I'm very surprised. I'm
we've
surprised
known-
you didn't put Vegas 4th, Ryan.
Yeah, look, the reason I put Vegas ahead is because I like their skill position players more. Denver's are good. Denver's are really nice. But Vegas has elite options. Running back's not that great, but they have Drake and Jacobs that can split, and that's good enough. That's fine. That's fine. Whatever.
And I will say, to interrupt you, Denver lost Tim Patrick. I think that's an underrated loss. I really do. I think he's a very
That's a good
valuable
loss.
Well,
receiver to that team.
depth is important in the NFL, and you have Judy and Sutton, and that's it, right? You don't have a tight end. You have Javonte Williams, right? So those are your three weapons, right? And then there's a massive drop off to where you and I don't know who their next weapon is, and we know everything about receivers
It's
in football.
Albert
This Denver
Ogawabalem, or
offense
whatever his name
feels
is.
Right.
This Denver offense feels eerily similar to the last few years of the Seattle offenses,
Maybe,
right?
yeah.
Like,
And the
you
offensive
have
line
two
is
really,
not
really
it's
good
average.
receiver. What's up?
The offensive line is average as well. It's
Right,
not great.
right.
I have another prop bet for you guys, which I heard on the radio last week.
Can we just talk about the NFC West and then call the podcast? I don't even know if we should do the whole NFC today.
I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. To be honest.
Quickly. So I heard on the radio, a host said, if you give me 3-1 odds that all 4 teams in this division win 10 or more games, I would take that.
Man, that's tough.
Wait, say that one more time.
3-1 odds that all 4 teams win 10 games in the
Yeah, no, they can't. I mean, like statistically, I'm sure
I
it's
think
possible. I just
mathematically
don't think
that's
so.
very hard.
I'm sure it's possible,
yes, I
but
agree.
it's
It would
hard.
be very hard.
I will say, like, I think I think the third team has 9 wins and still makes the playoffs. Like, it's going to come down to tiebreakers and whatnot, but like that third team's going to have like 9 wins and make the last wildcard spot or the second to last wildcard spot. But it's like one of those situations where they're not actually a 9-win team. Do you know what I mean? Like, they're 9 wins on paper, but they're better than that. We all know that,
6 of their games are against arguably 3 of the top AFC teams. Like,
yeah, like I think
and
the
they
Broncos
play the NFC West this year. They play, which is going to be a very tough division.
right.
Like, you have to understand.
And if you think about it, like if every team goes 3-3 in the division, then every team has to go 7-4 outside the division to win 10 games. Like, that's not easy.
It's hard, yeah. And you have to understand the Broncos, I have them 4th, but I think they win a lot of these divisions in the NFL. They win the AFC South. They get 2nd in the AFC East. Like, they're really good, and they might win the AFC North, to be honest. I mean, it would be like tight. Like, they'd be right up there. It's just the AFC West is so talented. It just is. And I think Wilson takes a slight step back. And I think that's the case.
These standings are ultimately going to come down to who plays best in the divisional games, and that's just a fact.
Mm-hmm. Yep,
I would agree.
I agree. Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. I'm excited for this division.
Herbert.
And I also want to say Herbert is like the 7th best quarterback in football. He's not top 5. All right, come on now. Let's not get.
Hey, I will say, Ryan, I got to give you some respect as a Cardinals fan because you put Kyler ahead of Justin Herbert.
Yeah, I think that he's more talented. Yeah, I think his longevity is not going to be right. Like, I don't think he'll last as long, but yeah, I think so. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens. It's going to be interesting. I think Herbert is slightly better than Burrow. Sorry, I'm just thinking out loud. It's going to be interesting. We'll see what happens. The AFC is going to be fun. It's going to be the better of the two conferences this year. It's going to be interesting. Look, we'll move on.
By the way,
NFC.
give me Burrow in that debate.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. It's really close. It's
Herbert
really
or
close.
Burrow?
Yeah, the problem is Burrow throws more picks than Herbert for me, which is like I think I might lean Herbert, but it's really close.
That was also with a bad offensive line, but yeah.
True. Yeah, I mean, we'll see what he can do with a better O-line. Yeah, I mean, look, maybe it fixes all his issues, but I don't know.
Let's talk about should we do the NFC South real quick? I know Jack's been eagerly waiting to bring something up about the NFC South.
The NFC South, baby.
So who's finishing
quickly.
second? Is it Tampa or sorry, is it New Orleans or New Orleans?
Oh my God.
And then who's finishing first? Is it Tampa or Tampa?
Woohoo!
So here's what I'll say.
Let's hear it, Eden.
I think Tampa will win the division, but I'm not counting out the New Orleans Saints.
Oh, come on.
I think they have a legitimate chance to win 10 games and potentially
That doesn't win the division.
But here's the thing too, and it's not getting talked about enough, and I mentioned it before the pod. Tom Brady is clearly, in my opinion, not 100% in on the NFL season right now.
Oh,
And will that change with time?
Oh,
Maybe.
This
But
is his
he
take.
is
Oh, let him
not
finish. Let him finish.
100% in, and for that reason, I would not be surprised if a healthy Jameis Winston, with their healthy weapons back, can come in and make a play and potentially steal the division from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I would not be surprised. if I had to bet on it, I don't think it's going to happen unless you gave me very good odds, maybe like 4-1, 5-1 odds. But I would not be. I think you have to watch out for a team like New Orleans. Now, a lot of that does come down to Alvin Kamara. Does he
He
get
might get suspended,
suspended?
yeah.
But as of now, it's looking like he isn't. But at the same time, if the video comes out, he'll be gone just like that. And we know in this day of age, anything can happen in a second. So considering he plays the full season, I would not be surprised if the New Orleans Saints push
Eden making me LOL right now with this take.
Oh my Lord.
All right.
Wow. So
I would not be surprised if the Saints push the Bucks for the division.
Look, Trevor, can I say something real quick? I'll be quick on this.
Yeah, go ahead.
Let me just say, I think I like the Saints more than most, but I didn't like them this much. I think they're really good on defense. I think they have a lot of weapons on offense, and Jameis is a gunslinger. He's like a poor man's Herbert. Like, he'll throw it deep, he'll go for the big shot, but he'll throw more picks than no. Dude, okay, I'm higher on Winston than most, honestly. I think he's actually a decent quarterback, to be honest. Like, he will make big plays. He will make big plays. And but he'll throw picks, but he'll make big plays. And I think that's going to be interesting. I'm Michael Thomas is back. They have Chris Olave, they have Jarvis Landry, Alvin Kamara, assuming he's playing and isn't suspended. That offense is talented, and that defense is arguably top 5 in the NFL. They are really well-rounded. They were ferocious last year. They probably got even better this year with the addition of Tyrann Mathieu. It's going to be interesting. I think that they own the Bucks. The Saints own the Bucks even last year. Like, they beat them in head-to-head matchups. But the sad thing for the Saints is the Bucks own everybody else, so they will be fine. They will win the division. The Saints will comfortably finish second, and I'd be shocked if they didn't make the playoffs. I think the Saints make the playoffs in a wild card pretty easily. The other two teams are just garbage. Like, the Panthers will win like 6 games. The Falcons will be lucky to win 3. Like, they're the worst team in football. I mean, it's not even close, to be honest with you, in my eyes. So yeah, that's my take on this division. I don't know. I mean, Eden's take isn't laughable. The only thing I'm going to laugh at is Brady not being committed to the season. I mean, the guy's just taking some vacation days. He's chilling. He's played for 23 years now. I mean, he knows what he's doing. I mean, he's been around
He had the whole off season to take a vacation. He was retired. Take a vacation then. Don't do it during the season.
Look, he's been around longer than I've been alive. I can't complain if he wants a few days. But maybe there's something to this. I don't know, but I'm not worried. And they also got Julio. Like, they have Julio, Chris Godwin, and Mike Evans. I mean, and Russell Gage is.
What did Julio do last season?
I don't care what he did last season. The guy's
washed up.
He's washed, but if he's your third receiver,
Chris Godwin's hurt.
Oh, whoa. Chris Godwin will be fine. He's going to come back week 1 healthy. Russell Gage is their 4th receiver. Which one of you loved Russell Gage? One of you loved Russell Gage earlier in this podcast. Even love Russell Gage. So, hey, he's their 4th receiver. They'll be fine. And they have Fournette, who's actually really good. So, they're going to be just fine. Sorry, Trevor, that was longer than just a second, but you go right ahead. Tell me what you have to say on this. I mean, I think it's pretty.
The Buccaneers, I think the 3 best rosters in football, all well-rounded teams with the least amount of weaknesses. The 3 best teams are the Chargers, the Chargers. There's 4. I won't throw the Chargers in. That's a little bold. I'll go the Bills, the Buccaneers, and the Rams. Those are the 3 best teams in football in terms of just overall roster construction depth, just least amount of weaknesses. Chargers are in there in the top 5. So for me, I think Tampa Bay is going to win this division easily. I'm not worried about Brady at all. The guy has 7 Super Bowls and 22 years of experience to back up these vacation days. For me, the Saints are interesting. I think they're going to be a 9 or 10 win team. I think that's going to be good enough to make the playoffs. They won't contend for the division. I actually think the Buccaneers are going to be the number 1 seed this year. I think they're going to win the NFC. I think they're going to win 13 games if I had to go with it right now. And Ryan's right. Carolina and Atlanta are just having fun. They are playing in their own league. They're not playing in the NFL. They're playing in the GFL, the NFL G League.
Especially Atlanta.
Atlanta's so bad. I honestly feel bad. It's a great sports city too, but I feel really bad for Atlanta.
Yeah.
But look, New Orleans, Jameis Winston's fine. He's if you had to rank him in quarterbacks, he's 17 to 20. He's in the bottom. He's in the top half of the bottom half. He's in the top part of the bottom half of NFL quarterbacks. He's average, he's mid, however you want to describe it. Their receivers, we want to talk about washed. Jarvis is a little washed. I do like Olave. Michael Thomas, injured, and we'll see. Slant guy, likes to run a slant, likes to run another slant. We'll see. Alvin Kamara, will he play? He'll play, but he's holding out. So I think there's some question marks with New Orleans. Great defense. They will win 9 or 10 games and make the wild card, though. And then I think, unless you guys have any final thoughts, I do think we will throw in or Eden, you have something to say about the NFC South? Or?
I have 2 quick ones. One,
Okay.
give me the under on Bucks 12.5 wins. And 2,
That's a lot of wins.
That is
Dennis
a lot of
Allen.
wins to bet on.
Dennis Allen 30-1 to win coach of the year.
Okay.
Not bad odds, to be honest with you. I actually think that might be
Give me
decent.
Cliff Kingsbury to disappoint me in the month of December.
Okay, good.
That is minus flat 500.
And with that, let's move.
Kingsbury. Let's transition over
And
to
let's
the
talk
NFC
about the
West.
funnest division in football.
Oh, get out of here. And look, this is going to be the last division we're going to talk about. We're going to save the last 2 fun divisions for next week.
Well, the other 2 are kind of irrelevant, right? Like the NFC North, you care. Okay, there's some fun teams.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have a quick 15-minute segment with them on the next podcast. But look, let's go to the NFC West here. Yeah, let's get it started with one of the Cardinals fans. Why don't you go ahead? Trevor, you go ahead. You started off. What do you think's going to happen in the NFC West? Are the Rams going to get first, or are the Rams going to get first?
I'm going to give you my standings right now. And this might surprise some people.
Oh, boy.
Rams 1, Seattle 4. San Francisco 2,
Yeah.
Arizona 3.
Okay.
And here's why. San Francisco, to me, moving on to Trey Lance tells me something. It tells me that they believe in him.
Oh,
and you know what that also tells me? Kyle Shanahan's going to figure out a way to make this guy a really good football player. The fact that they're so willing to move off Jimmy Garoppolo leads me to believe that Trey Lance can open up a lot of things for this offense. He's a mobile quarterback. He's very fun to watch. And he's big and he's physical. And we'll see how he can throw. His throwing motion's a little weird. It's a little fidgety. I don't even know how to explain it, but I'm sure that will improve over time. And San Francisco's defense is elite. I think we saw it in the playoffs last year. That front 7, Arden Key, Armstead, Fred Warner, I think that defense can wreak havoc. And Nick Bosa, I didn't even mention Nick Bosa.
Mm-hmm.
San Francisco to me is a very well-rounded team. And San Francisco is a Super Bowl dark horse. I'm just going to come right out here and say it. A Super Bowl dark horse. They got to the NFC Championship game last year. They have a good enough coach. If Trey Lance can put it together, this team is scary. I'm telling you, nobody wants to see this team if Trey Lance can put it all together. You have Debo, Yuck, as I like to call him, but you have George Kittle. And I'm not betting against LA, though. Matthew Stafford just won a Super Bowl. His elbow will be fine. Cam Akers is coming back. Cooper Kupp is the best receiver in football right now in this moment in time. Cooper Kupp is the best receiver in football. The guy had a 2,000-yard season, or almost 2,000-yard season. And this is the most underrated signing of the entire NFL free agency. And Ryan, you're going to love this.
Mm-hmm.
Allen Robinson, ladies and gentlemen, is not being talked about. And I don't understand why. This guy would have been a perennial Pro Bowler, top 7, top 10 receiver in the NFL if he had a half decent quarterback at all in his entire career. Let's not forget, this guy made Blake Bortles look good. This guy helped get Blake Bortles to an AFC Championship game. Now you give him Matthew Stafford, and Cooper Kupp has all that attention on the other side of the field. Sean McVay, the genius up top. Allen Robinson is going to have a great year for the Los Angeles Rams. He's a lot better than OBJ at this point in their careers. I should say a lot better, but he is better than OBJ. I think he's a better 2 than OBJ would be right now.
Okay.
And that gets me to Arizona. Seattle we won't talk about. Drew Lock, not good.
Eden, OBJ was a 3 last year.
OBJ,
Who was 2?
Robinson's got to stay healthy. Yes, OBJ is hurt, but if you're telling me to take those 2 guys healthy, I would take OBJ over Allen Robinson.
Yeah, hold on.
All right, so I got to get to Arizona real quick. I got to talk about my Cardinals, right? No D-Hop for 6 games. That's very concerning. I don't like that. This is what's going to happen, right? I'm going to be low on the Cardinals on the pod. We're going to come out and we're going to beat the Kansas City Chiefs and the Los Angeles Rams. And then I'm going to come back on this pod in late September and tell you guys how we're going to the Super Bowl. And then in December, when we start losing games we shouldn't lose, I'm going to come back on this podcast and tell you that Kyler Murray and Cliff Kingsbury should be fired.
Oh boy.
So that's how the cycle's going to go. But
Yeah.
for right now, the Cardinals are a 9-win team. I think they're going to be a borderline 7th seed. Losing D-Hop for 6 games.
That's hard.
Losing Chandler Jones. I do like the defense, though. I like our linebacking core. I like our secondary more than people think. I think Buddha, Byron, and I think Marco Wilson's a very nice young corner. Isaiah and Zaven, I think, are going to be a nice linebacking duo. I think if JJ Watt can stay healthy, he'll be valuable. And we did draft a couple of interesting defensive ends this year. So we'll see how they do to replace Chandler Jones. To me, there's just too many question marks I don't fully believe in Kyler and Cliff. I just don't. And I'm telling you, I'm going to come on this pod in a month. And when we're 4-0, I'm going to go, I believe in these guys, but I'm going to remember to restrain myself this year because I need to see a full season from these two guys before I can really believe in them. Go ahead, Ryan.
Can you tell me the first 4 games in the Cardinals schedule?
I know the first 3. I think 4 is easier, but the first 3 games are Chiefs at home, at Vegas, home against Rams.
You're not going.
And you don't have your best player. You don't have DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah.
That's tough. That is going to hurt morale when you start the season 1-2 at best. I don't see them winning more than 1 game out of those 3.
I actually think the Chiefs game might be the most winnable, to be honest with you.
I'd go Vegas. That would be the most winnable.
The only reason I say that, Trevor, is week 1's fluky and the Chiefs are a new team without Tyreek. I think it might take a little bit of a.
See, I would agree with you, but here's where I'm going to. The Cardinals were 8-1 on the road last year and 3-5 at home. So I'm going to bet on a week 2 win in Vegas. But that's
fair.
The point.
That's fair. Yeah.
So for me, I think the Cardinals.
Week 1.
I think the Cardinals can be so good. I think Kyler has shown flashes of brilliance, but they haven't put it all together. And without D-Hop for 6 games, brutal schedule, brutal division, this team will finish 3rd. They're going to be 9-8, and they might just miss out on the playoffs this year. That's my prediction.
Ian, go ahead, and then I'll wrap us up.
The Rams are going to be the first team.
That's correct.
The Geno Smith-led Seattle Seahawks will be the 4th team.
He's doing my thing again.
Oh, my Lord.
And the 2 seed is going to be decided week 17. And you know what week 17 is, gentlemen? The Arizona Cardinals at the San Francisco 49ers in Levi Stadium.
Oh, my gosh.
And the Arizona Cardinals will win that game. They will be the 2 seed.
Yes, sir.
I have faith. Turn me up, T.
I came on this podcast last year, Ryan, and I said Cliff Kingsbury should be coach of the year. I said that.
You said Kyler Murray for MVP for 2 years in a row.
It was looking good.
Ryan, let me say, if the season ended at week 8 every year, I think Kyler would have an MVP by then. I'm not
when does the new Call of Duty come out, and can we push that back to February 13th?
Actually.
You know what I mean? But seriously.
Right. So I think, factoring the schedule in and factoring in the Niners' great defense, that makes me skeptical. But I ultimately, right now, to be honest, don't believe in Trey Lance. I just don't. I think, I think he's a year away. But, everything's weird coming out of training camp. You hear good things, you hear bad things. Mm-hmm. But I ultimately think moving off Jimmy G was the wrong move for this team. And me
I kind of agree.
Personally thinking that moving off Jimmy G was the wrong move and then still putting them ahead of my Arizona Cardinals, I ultimately just cannot do that right now. And I think this is the most offensively talented Arizona Cardinals team that Trevor and I have seen in our lifetime.
Fair.
Maybe the 2009 Super Bowl team with Fitz and Bolden compares. That's the only team that could compare.
And Edgerrin James, yeah.
And they went to the Super Bowl. The defense has some question marks in the secondary. Trevor was talking about Marco Wilson. I just read a tweet today, actually, that Hamilton is ahead of Wilson on the depth chart. So
Did I say Wilson? I said Hamilton, right? I said Hamilton.
so the cornerback room scares me a little bit, and that's going to be the weakness is, you look at these 2 teams, Arizona to win is going to have to outscore teams, and San Francisco to win is going to have to outdefend teams. So it's ultimately who plays their game better. And I know at the end of the season, we lose all our games that are important that we need to win. But I think it's time for Kyler Murray to show up. And I think, he's got his new contract. You got all this hate in the offseason for playing video games. I really hope as a Cardinals fan
That's
that it
actually
lights a
scary.
fire under him, and
agree
he wants to
completely.
prove people wrong. And it's going to come down to week 17, and he's going to show up, and we're going to win that game. And
I
have
want
the
to say
Cardinals
one
finish
thing
second.
when Eden's done. Sorry, Eden, keep going if you're not
Yep,
done yet.
that's it.
I want to say one thing before Ryan jumps in. Kyler Murray felt scapegoated. He felt like, this and that. What's the excuse? He has no more excuses. He got his contract. He has all the weapons he can want. You talk about skill position players. The Cardinals have really, really good skill position players. I mean, D-Hop, Marquise Brown, AJ Green, even in late stages of his career, can be effective. James Conner was a Pro Bowler last year. Zach Ertz is effective. There's no excuses for Kyler Murray.
Rondale Moore,
I agree. Rondale Moore kind of reminds me
I think
of
he's going
prime
to have a big
Tavon.
year.
So there's no more excuses for Kyler Murray. There's no more playing the victim. There's no more feeling scapegoated. This is your team. This team was built around you. You got your contract. And Eden's right. You need to go out and show up and win big games. And he hasn't done that. And I hope he does. And I hope some adversity and some hate, like Jack said, is going to light a fire under his ass. And he plays good in December when the games matter more. Go ahead, Ryan.
What Trevor said is exactly why the Arizona Cardinals are going to finish third in the division, and I don't know if it'll be all that close. And the reason I say that is because DeAndre Hopkins is out for 6 games. I think that's really, really, really important. He's the best player on the team outside of Kyler Murray. Kyler's probably the better player, but D-Hop is arguably the most valuable. In my opinion, your team can win with Colt McCoy at quarterback for a couple of games. They did last year. But if D-Hop's playing, I think that's a huge, huge, huge difference. And then missing those games is really, really big, and especially because the Cardinals like to get off the hot starts. Trevor also highlighted the idea that Kyler felt scapegoated. I feel like Kyler's mindset's all twisted, and it's a problem for me. I don't like it. He thinks of himself as a victim. Man, you're the quarterback of the team. You're supposed to own up, take responsibility for wins and losses. These are on you. You're the most important player. You're the best player. You're the guy that everyone's going to look to. You lose to the Rams in the playoffs, don't point at your coach. Don't point at your receivers. Sure, they have some blame, but you're the quarterback. Step up and say, hey, I didn't play well today. This is my fault. Because it was. A lot of the blame falls on Kyler. He didn't play well towards the end of the year, and he didn't show up in the playoffs. A lot of that's on him, right? Cliff's not a great coach, in my opinion. So maybe he makes some in-game mistakes. Maybe he doesn't call the right plays sometimes, but Kyler's the star. Kyler's the guy. You're the $240 million man, or whatever it was, $230 million man. Go out and make plays and take ownership of what happens. So I don't like that attitude from him. That concerns me not only this year, but down the road. I don't know who's going to lead the team without a guy like D-Hop in there. Like J.J. Watt, I presume, is going to be the team leader. But it concerns me. It concerns me. And also because I don't know if the head coach is a true leader either. I think he's a good play caller, but outside of that, is he a leader? He reminds me of Trevor's concerns about Josh McDaniels, right? Guys are good offensive minds, but do they have do they have that head coaching leadership style? I don't know, right? So when your quarterback and your coach aren't really born leaders or true leaders, that's worrisome. So, that concerns me, and the lack of D-Hop and Chandler Jones being gone concerns me. And I just think the Niners have, Trevor said Shanahan was a good head coach. Shanahan isn't a good head coach. Shanahan is a top 5 head coach in the NFL right now. Shanahan is an elite head coach who not only is able to lead his players, but he's probably the best offensive mind in football. I mean, the guy schemes Elijah Mitchell to have a great year last year. The guy schemes multiple running backs to look amazing. It reminds me of the Kevin Stefanski offense. And I think Shanahan's a better offensive mind than Kevin Stefanski. He's a genius. The O-line's great. Eden thinks I'm crazy or something. I don't know what got him. But look, the Niners
Does Monty Williams coach football? Can he? He coaches basketball. Can he coach football? I need a player leader for my Cardinals. I need a guy that plays.
Honestly. But look,
can I just say, why does every single Ryan Marister football analogy come back to Kevin Stefanski? That's the thing that gets me every time. He said his name 4 times on the podcast today, and not once were we actually talking about the Browns.
I love it. Look.
That's why I keep laughing. Not that I disagree with you, but every single coaching
that's
trait
fair.
comes back to Kevin Stefanski.
Look, it's the same way everything seems to circle back to the Phoenix Suns in our conversations. Some things just circle back to the team that you root for. You know how it is. Everything goes back to the Suns. Things for me go back to the Browns.
We haven't talked about the Suns once tonight.
True. I'm saying when we talk about NBA stuff, it always circles
someone
back
say
to the
Katie
Suns.
to Phoenix.
Oh boy, good lord. But yeah, I don't have anything on the Seahawks or the Rams, so we'll.
Okay, so real
here.
quick before we end this podcast,
Go ahead.
who are 7 teams to make the playoffs? So I'm doing 2 from the NFC West, the California teams, 2 from the South, 2 from the East, and 1 from the North. I'm gonna go.
Who are
with
the 2 from the East?
Cowboys and Eagles.
Wow. I would do everything that you said, except I would flip 2 from the East to 2 from the North, and I think the Minnesota Vikings get in.
That's fair. I was thinking about that.
That is fair.
And the Cowboys win that division.
Interesting. Okay.
I'm between that and what Trevor said because I think the Eagles might disappoint this year. Yeah, I might go with what Eden said. I think it's going to be I think the Vikings get in.
I think those last few
I do.
wild card teams, it's going to be Philly, Minnesota, and the Cardinals. I think those 3 teams are going to have to duke it out for 1 or 2 spots.
What
What
about
about
the
San
Saints?
Francisco?
I think San Francisco and New Orleans are more comfortably make. You could loop the Saints in. I think the 49ers comfortably make the playoffs. That
Okay.
might be a bold prediction with Trey Lance.
Well, you
But
only get 3 wild card teams.
Okay, so here's what I was going to say.
Yeah, he's saying
the Niners are in, and then these 4 teams, the Vikings,
Yes.
Oh,
Eagles,
I thought you meant
Cardinals,
those 3 are in. Okay.
and Saints are going to fight for the last 2 spots.
Fair.
Okay, I got
That's
you.
how I see it playing out.
And the NFC is, look at that. It's so much. You look at the AFC and you got what? You got
Nothing compared to the AFC.
the Bills and the Colts. Let's just say the Bengals because you guys think they're going to win the division somehow. The Bengals and then
Somehow like they didn't
one
just
of
go
the
to the
4.
Super Bowl.
and then one of the 4 in the AFC West, right? And then you have 3 wildcard spots between, good lord, like the Browns, Steelers, however competitive you think they'll be, the Ravens.
Brian, I got to ask you, though. I have to ask you.
the Dolphins, and then the 3 AFC West teams. What's up?
How does any of what you just said relate back to Kevin Stefanski? I need a tie here.
Well, look, when you have an offensive mind like Kevin does, your team's never out of playoff contention. Let me just say that.
Fair enough.
How'd they do last year?
Hey, we were in playoff contention until week 16. We were.
I remember that 37-14 game between the
All
Cardinals
right,
and the
ladies
Browns.
and gentlemen, here's where we wrap up the podcast. I couldn't
Didn't
hear what
Lamar
Trevor said.
Jackson shit himself and then came back and they still won or something like that?
All I remember is Lamar Jackson got hurt in the game we played him and then we won.
So first
yeah.
Ryan's celebrating the Achilles tear of some guy, and now he's celebrating Lamar being hurt.
I was not celebrating the Achilles tear. I was trying to say.
Shout out Tim Patrick for tearing his ACL.
I hate you guys.
I actually do have one real shout out. I have a real shout out.
Trevor, go ahead. What's the shout out?
I want to shout out European football. And here in America, we call it soccer. Ugh. European football, ladies and gentlemen, European football is the greatest sport in the world, and I'm convinced of that.
No, it's not.
Did you see the Chelsea-Tottenham game this past Sunday?
Sorry, I fell asleep.
Did you see the managers get in their faces? That's what sports is about. I don't like all these people loving up on each other. Draymond Green's like, come have Christmas at my house after the Christmas Day game with John Morant. European football, that's hatred, that's passion, that's sports, and that's why it's the greatest sport in the world. Just want to shout out Chelsea and Tottenham, Thomas Tuchel and Antonio Conte, 2 great managers of 2 huge European football clubs, getting in each other's faces, fighting quite literally for their clubs. That is sports in a nutshell. Shout out real football.
Can I shout out an EPL team as well?
Oh boy.
Manchester United.
Yeah, shout out Manchester United for I think I could have gone out there and played better. Like, they are pathetic, and they're my team, and it's terrible to see. The fact that I woke up early on Saturday morning and went to an English pub with my dad to watch that game is embarrassing. So shout out Brentford, my bad. Shout out Brentford, not Brentwood, where OJ killed his wife. But anyways,
wow.
But shout out
how it would have
Brentford
happened.
and
Eden, where does
Manchester
your
United
allegiance lie for the
sucks.
World Cup? Where does your allegiance lie for the World Cup?
My allegiance for the World Cup, I will be
Eden?
visiting my grandma in England and watch a game at the pub. In fact, it'll be the England-USA game over Thanksgiving break,
Mhm.
and I will be cheering for my home country of England.
Boo.
Boo! Boo!
Hence why I will be there and not here for the game.
Wow. Well, ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, England's gonna choke again, like they choked against Italy. You know, we all remember that. Trevor
They
told me it
honestly
was
suck
Italy.
right now,
That
so.
was a disaster.
But we'll talk about that in November.
We will,
Mhm.
and I'll actually watch soccer then, so that'll be fun. That'll be interesting. That'll be exciting.
It's football.
But,
It's European football, not
oh,
soccer.
it's European football. Oh, okay. Cool.
Us Americans, we just want to screw everything up and do our own thing. It's European football. Put some respect on European football's name.
Okay, and with that, we're gonna wrap it up. The shout outs are done. Eden's I don't know, he's bugging out. And we're gonna wrap up this podcast.
I was looking to see if I had an England flag nearby that I could hold up. But I don't.
Okay.
I'm looking.
And yeah, we're gonna wrap it up here. I just want to say that Kevin Stefanski is the best coach in the NFL, and yeah.
One last thing.
Hope you enjoyed the podcast, and we'll be back next
Salsa
week with
J,
another one.
please stay in Phoenix. Please stay in Phoenix.
We'll see you next week.